Bring that back up again. So, of all the different components of the grant, by far, the most important is the budget section. That's because you have to be able to know how to handle people's money. I don't care how good your program is, how successful you are in terms of bringing about a change. If you can't deal with the people's money, they're not going to give it to you. So what we've done in the last couple of classes is to talk about the budget in terms of the actual budget when it's done. Now we're going to go back and take every item piece by piece to learn what are all the different items that make up a budget. So, in other words, a budget is more or less a statement of your proposed expenditures. That's what a budget is. You say you want to solve a particular problem. The budget begins to articulate financially how it looks. It consists of a couple of different types of costs involved in the Bible. In the budget. One is the direct costs. Now, the direct costs is those costs associated with staff, salaries, consulting, friends benefits, and those other things normally associated with those folks that's on the front line that's going to provide the service to your clients. Secretary, program coordinators, all that is direct. The direct costs of a budget, direct costs. However, in order to an organization to run effectively, you also have to have what's known as indirect costs. Indirect costs are those costs associated with people that you need to bring on board that's not going to be providing direct services to your clients. What do we mean? A lawyer, an accountant, those other type of people that you need in order for the organization to be successful. That's what we call indirect costs. Direct costs is any cost that goes to people who are going to be on the front line working with the people that you're servicing. Indirect costs, that cost associated with the organization. For example, in indirect costs, every time you write a grant, 10% of the program operations will go towards your salary. It's called administrative salary, administrative budget. Now, the other thing connected with money is what's known as cost sharing. What does that mean? Well, sometimes you might partner with another group to go after a grant. And that group might say, we'll put up 50%, and you say you'll put up 50%. So y'all sharing the cost for whatever reason you decide to come together and do that. The last type of the item that should be on the budget is called in-kind. Or in other words, in-kind is another word for pro bono, meaning it's free. However, it does have a value to it. What does that mean? Let's say, for example, during your operation, a lawyer say, you know what, Charles? I really like what you're doing. Look, I'm going to donate 100 hours a year to work with you and provide, the basic legal work for your organization to be sustainable. Now, two things you're going to do. First, you're going to be happy as I don't know what.
Yes, sir.
And the next time you do a budget, you're going to have a budget item called in-kind. And that's why you're going to put down, well, this lawyer normally makes $300 an hour. He's going to give me 100 hours. What is that? 100 times 300.
3,000.
Huh?
3,000.
No, 30,000.
Would you say 100 times? 100
Yeah,
times?
100. Yeah, 100 times 300.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's 30,000.
30,000. So doesn't that look good on your budget now?
Yes, sir.
When you put an in-kind, you say $30,000, and then you're gonna have a budget item. And it's gonna say in-kind service at $100 an hour for $200 and for 200 hours per waive legal fees.
Wow.
So that would be an example. Or another example in West Tampa, when they early got started, they had an accounting firm that said, look, during your first year, we will provide free pro bono services. You know how much they normally get an hour? Because they deal with corporate America. They get $500 to $1,000 an hour. Woo. So if they say they're gonna provide you free service, then what you're gonna do is say thank you so much, and then you're gonna use it when you go after you go at funding in your budget. But that's not all. Wow. Let's say, for example, you got 50 people that want to help and do volunteer work for your organization. Mm-hmm. And each one commit to 50 hours per year. And you multiply that time the total number of people, and you multiply that by 27 an hour. I don't have my calculator, but what does that come to?
$50 an hour times $27 an hour.
No, 27 an hour.
$27 an hour.
Yeah. I don't have that number, but you can see where I'm trying to go at.
Yes, sir.
Now you're going to monetize it. You're going to take it to show what the money is. So you're saying that in volunteer work, we have we in that column you're going to put down, let's say 15,000 or 20,000, because under the law, if somebody volunteered to your organization in terms of in-kind, you can put that down as $27 an hour.
Wow.
Even if that person pick up trash.
Good God Almighty. That's 30.
So now you see how those, and now you know why I stayed here at in-kind, because people don't understand the value of in-kind pro bono.
Wow.
Especially when you're just getting started and you don't have a lot of real money.
Yeah.
You can show you come up with other types of money. So in-kind is a very important component of being able to help you and strengthen your proposal when you're going after money from a budget perspective.
Gotcha.
Okay, let's move on.
Even myself as the owner.
Oh yeah, definitely. You can put down what would you normally be paid? Times the number of hours and put it down exactly like that. Exactly like that. Okay. For example, you can have one column down there to say that if I was actually doing this to get paid, and you can put this in your in-kind section, you say that value will be $150,000. You know, and you articulate why that's the case, your background and industry and all like that. But at the end of the day, it becomes value, because it's not the money you got, but you got other value that you bring into the table to bring the money to the table.
Yes, sir.
Okay, do me a favor and read the first sentence and the first paragraph.
The typical elements of a budget include a list of expenses, as well as supported and revenue. When you begin to assemble the budget, it's helpful to prepare a worksheet that includes a list of all personal and non-personal expenses related to the operation of the project. Consider any new costs that will be incurred if the project is funded, i.e. temporary employees or consultants, as well as any ongoing expenses for items that will be allocated to the project. Non-personal costs might include items such as travel, equipment, office supplies, and postage.
Now notice how they break it down into two major categories: personnel and non-personnel expenses as part of the expense. So read the next paragraph.
Items might include salaries and benefits. Full-time employees who will be assigned to work on the project should be included in the budget at the appropriate percentage of time. For example, if the administrative assistant plans to spend 20 hours of her 40-hour work week involved with a project that is expected to last 1 year, you might budget for 50% of her total salary for the 12-month period.
So that means that if you got a secretary, let's say, for example, you got an administrative assistant, and you just got to bash this new money in, and you're saying, look, we're going to make sure that we're going to allot 50% of your time to this particular project. If you do another project, you can say we're going to allot 50% of your time to that project. If you do 50 and 50 together, what do you have?
100%.
You got 100%. And that's how you get the money for your staff. 50% from this grant, 20% from this grant.
Gotcha.
That makes sense?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Okay, let's continue to go on. All right. Let me move this object that's in front of me. I want to just look at this section right here. Do you see where the cursor is?
Uh-huh.
Okay. It's the budget, program budget. It consists of the expenses. And this lists all of the expenses. And we're going to start to talk about the income also, because that's the other part of the equation. So when they say expenses, they're saying that, hey, our personnel include administrative assistant. 50% of the expenses is allotted to her. That means 50% of any given day, 20 hours is going to be allotted to this particular project. And then fringe benefits that's associated with that. And then the total expense. And then you come down to your non-personnel, temporary employees, program coordinator, program assistants, fringe benefits. Then you come down to your second set of funding, job readiness workshop. How much does it cost? Office supply, footage, staff travel. You always want to put money in there for your staff to travel, as well as for you to travel. Others, and then they put down the total non-personnel expenses, which is $29,000. You combine them together, and you get a grand total of $48,000. So this is simply as the most basic type of budget. Now let's jump back over here again and read the first paragraph for me.
Be careful not to put other on the line with the substantial amount next to it. Remember that funders want to look at a budget and see that it is a responsible representation of costs for your program. Make sure that other does not take up too high a percentage of the total. A small amount, however, is perfectly reasonable.
Now, what happens is people will put a column in there, and you should. You always should have others. Others mean anything that could happen. However, you should only allot of the total budget about 3 to 8% for others. Some people say 30% for others. And they'd be like, what?
That's also miscellaneous stuff, right?
Yeah, that's really miscellaneous.
I got you.
But they say now you need to be able to show what the majority of the budget is going to go for. So when you put down others, miscellaneous could be anything. So that's why you want to narrow it down to about maybe somewhere in that neighborhood. Look how they narrowed down others. From a budget of $29,000, they only put down $100 for others, which is reasonable. Because they say something might go wrong. Look, let's put an extra 100 or 300 in there. It's smart to do that. But if you put others and then you put down half of the budget, that's not going to work.
Yeah, yeah.
So like you said, go to those miscellaneous things that are small, but you budget for that. Okay, so let's read you the next paragraph.
Your list of budget items and the calculations you have done to arrive at a dollar figure for each item all should be summarized on worksheets. These can be essential when you need to remind yourself how the numbers were developed, when you are writing the proposal, and at a later stage discussing it with funders.
Yeah, that is critical that you're able to put together that document, that worksheet. Everything should be done from a worksheet. We're going to look at some worksheets later on. Okay, what's the second part of a grant? And read that for me.
Revenue. If grants support has been already committed to your project through foundation funding, in-kind, non-monetary gifts, government sources, or individual contributions, you will need to provide this information in a support and revenue statement. The total grant support already committed should then be deducted from total expenses line on the budget to give you the balance requested. Any earned income anticipated also should be estimated on the support and revenue statement. For instance, if you work for a local theater group and expect 50 people to attend a performance charged at $10 per ticket on each of the 4 nights, your line of income would show ticket sales at $2,000.
So you can see you really want to make sure that you don't do what's known as double dipping. And that's why you got to break down where's money coming from and who's giving you the money. And that's another thing. Ticket sales. This organization right here is bringing in $2,000 in ticket sales. One of the things I would advise them was that you need to start looking at how you can increase those ticket sales 10 times. So it begins to be impressive that you can, so we can bring in from ticket sales over a period of time, 10, 15,000 over a period of time. But definitely, because what that showed the funders is that you got your own source of income coming in. You just leveraging what you're bringing in with what they have in order to make the deal work. Okay, let's continue. Any questions so far?
No, sir. Sounds good.
Okay. Basically, and this is words of wisdom. Whenever you writing a grant to different foundations, make sure you let the foundations know that I've always put it, I also put in a proposal to X foundation. Because they're gonna know if you put it, because they meet every month. So they're gonna know.
Okay.
So you always let them know that, we, in addition to your organization, we also have submitted a proposal to organization Z.
Okay.
That's only if you're doing that. A lot of times you can just write one grant and get it, but other times what you're saying is that we have a big proposal that's coming out of pipeline. We're asking you for 25,000. We're going for another organization. We're asking them for 60,000 in order to make the deal work, to let them know that, hey, look, we're also asking money for other organizations as well. Okay, now read that last paragraph.
Okay. Just writing that down, that word of wisdom right there. Yes, sir.
There you go. There you go.
If you are submitting proposals.
No, the final paragraph.
Oh, the final paragraph?
Starting with we have.
Oh, we have already received a grant of $30,000 from the ABC Foundation and are requesting $15,000 from your foundation, which
See
is
how you got to be. See how you got to be straight up. You got to let that person know, well, we do have a grant already for $30,000, but we asking you for $15,000. Instead of saying, oh, we need money, and forgetting to mention that we already got money from somebody else, because they're going to know. So it's best to let them know that we're actually trying to leverage money. We bought in $30,000. We only asking you for half of what we bought at, which is $15,000. That's how you frame it.
All right, gotcha.
Okay, now there's another part of the budget that's not part of the direct costs. Remember we talked about the different parts of a budget. We said there's direct costs and there's indirect costs. We just talked about examples of indirect costs when we look at that budget. Now, let's talk about indirect costs and read what indirect cost is.
Overhead and fringe benefits.
Continue.
Project budgets may include items for overhead costs and fringe benefits.
Now, read the next paragraph.
Most budgets include overhead expenses, also called indirect costs.
Say it again, indirect costs. Go ahead.
Costs, which allows the project to beat a portion of, to bear a portion of the administrative costs of the day-to-day operation.
That's how you get your money, through that administrative cost. Continue.
Depending on the preference of the funder, overhead can be entered in the budget as one line item or a separate line items.
And it's normally cost overhead or administrative costs. Continue.
Some overhead items may include a percentage of the bookkeeper's salary, board meeting expenses, rent, electricity, and the cost of running the human resources department. These are items that are incurred whether or not you have a particular project for which you are budgeting. And you can't run an organization without these costs. The formula used for allocating overhead costs to project budgets is usually based on the organization's overhead costs to the organization's total program expenses.
Well, I can tell you right now, normally it's anywhere from 8 to 12% of the total budget. So if you're doing a budget for $100,000, you can try to allot $10,000 to go towards administrative costs. Anything, but the beauty of it, most time, when you're going for a grant, they will tell you what they will allow for administrative costs.
Okay.
If they don't have it, you got to go by the industry standard, which is 8 to 12%.
Okay, that's industry standard.
Yes. Like what we call those inside secrets that you know what the deal is, what the normal standard is.
And that's 8 to 12% of the total budget that goes to administrative
of the
costs.
total. Correct. Example of $100,000, and one section in that budget item is going to be administrative costs, and it's going to be $10,000. That means that $90,000 is going towards the program.
Gotcha.
It used to be a time when people would play games, and 90% of the money will come to the executive director, and only 10% will go to programs. And they switch it around, as they should have, and say most of the money should actually go to the right programs that you want to run. And that's why you're constantly running different programs, because you're constantly bringing your salary from 10% from this, 15% from this, to make the total 100%.
Gotcha.
Okay, let me see. All right, that's enough of this. Let me go to here we go. Go to the last paragraph.
The overhead rate is 25%, meaning that for every dollar the organization spends on its program, 25 cents is expended for overhead.
Okay. So see how they finaggled. Let me read this right here.
Each year, XYZ Inc. is a nonprofit organization, spends $400,000 on its programs and $100,000 in overhead costs. What is overhead rate? $100,000 per $400,000 is 0.25.
And then read that last sentence again.
The overhead rate is 25%, meaning that for every dollar the organization spends on its program, 25 cents is expended for overhead.
So that's how you look at it when you start to plan your budget. You say for every dollar we're going to get, we need to get 25 cents to come back for administrative costs, meaning that 75% is going to go to program operation and 25% is going to go towards administrative costs or overhead.
Gotcha.
Okay, let's continue. So read that first sentences.
Funders will often include their policies on providing overhead funding in their guidelines.
Every time, and people don't take the time in order to read the guidelines. So yeah, definitely you want to read the guidelines.
Gotcha. Many funders have policies regarding the percentage of overhead that they will allow in a project budget. Some do not allow any overhead at all to be included, while others allow overhead to be a specific percentage of the total cost of personal costs.
Yeah, you definitely want to look to the guidelines and policies to make sure that they are, you adhere to what they want you to adhere to. Because like they say, some don't include administrative costs, but the greater majority do. And normally they don't include administrative costs when you go for a small grant. Like 5,000, 10,000, something like that. They don't include administrative costs. But the bigger the grant, the more they let to administrative costs because they know somebody had to oversee it. And that's why they give that cost for you to oversee it from an administrative perspective.
Okay.
Okay, read this for me.
Calculations. Employee benefits and payroll taxes must be included as a part of personnel costs.
Let me ask you a question. What is that called when you say employee benefits and personnel taxes? What is that called?
That's
Friends benefits.
Friends benefits. Friends benefits.
So continue.
If a salary or a portion of a salary is being paid through a grant, it is important to include that portion of the fringe benefits. Fringe benefits include such costs as Social Security taxes, health insurance, dental insurance, and long-term disability insurance. Once you have determined the cost of all of the fringe benefits allocated to employees within your organization, you can divide that by total payroll and arrive at the benefit rate.
Now, any cost other than paying that person's salary is called fringe benefit. What that mean? That means the only thing an employee is legally obligated to pay is the employee's salary. Fringe benefits like dental plan, like holidays, like personal leave, parental days, and all those stuff like that. That's a fringe benefit that comes with the employee's benefit. Some jobs, especially those low-end jobs, people go to work, but they have no benefits.
Get no benefits.
They just get a paycheck and that's it. But there's no real benefit. There's no health care. There's none of that. So that's what this is, fringe benefits. And when you're a good employer, you want to make sure that you calculate this amount when you begin to talk about putting your budget together. because this then become making sure you're taking care of your employees. Now read how they calculate their fringe benefits. Great.
Benefits: medical insurance, $25,000. Dental insurance, $5,000. Long-term disability, $5,000. FICA and other taxes, $15,000. Total fringe benefit, $50,000. Total payroll, $200,000. Fringe benefit rate, the fringe benefits compared to the total payroll is $50,000. Divided by 200,000, 25%.
That means every dollar that comes out of that budget, 25 cents goes to fringe benefits. So 25% of that is going to go towards fringe benefits. And that's how we calculate.
Mm-hmm.
When we begin to talk about fringe benefits and those other, we always use calculation. We always take the smaller into the larger to come out with the percentage. So in that budget, you can articulate what 25% goes to this, 15% goes to here, and 80% go to here. So you can break it down to the person.
So now you have 50% for your program, because you got 25% for your fringe benefits and another 25% that's going to overhead for.
Now keep in mind, this fringe benefits is still part of your program service. This is not really administrative costs.
Oh, okay.
So when we do that big budget and we say $200,000 is going to is what we bring it in as a whole, we're saying of that $200,000, X is going towards salaries, and another 25% is going to go towards fringe benefits. And that's how we come up with that 200,000. Now that's another conversation when you start to do your administrative costs.
Oh.
But this is part of the fringe benefits is always part of the overall program budget. It's two parts. You got your program budget, and then you got your administrative costs.
Gotcha. Okay.
And what we're talking about now, we're going back to the program costs.
This is program costs.
Even when you do program costs, you want to be able to break down that, you know, our people are getting $25,000 a year. But that might seem like a little bit, but here are the fringe benefits. $25,000 allotted for medical insurance, $5,000 for dental. Now that salary is not really $25,000, but when you look at the fringe benefits, that's $35,000 to $45,000.
Oh yeah.
You begin to look at the total budget, and you always want to calculate fringe benefits. If you don't, that means you can't provide medical care for your employees. You can't provide dental care or those other things needed. Long-term liability. For example, that's one of your employees get hurt, and it's a long-term liability. But part of your benefits is insurance that you're getting. So that means the employee is going to be protected.
Yes.
Because you paid the insurance. Oh, we're going to talk about insurance in another time, but you should have all type of insurance. But we'll talk about that later on. Okay, let's move on. Budget narrative. Read this for me.
A budget narrative is useful in defining the costs included on a project budget.
A budget narrative is when you explain exactly what you buying and how it relates to the organization. Point of fact, you buy a computer. Well, you have to justify. We're buying this computer because it adds to productivity and efficiency for the organization. That's what the computer does. You need to make an argument how important. It's not this little tool, but it's part of building our capacity, sustainability, providing efficiency and effectiveness. That's why you're buying that computer. Just like if you buy a printer, it adds to the efficiencies and the productivity of the organization. If you buy a camera, everything you buy, you have to tie it back to how does it help to build your organization.
Gotcha.
Okay, read the next paragraph.
A budget narrative often is used to explain line items in the budget. It can be structured in one of two ways. You can create notes to the budget with footnote style numbers or letters on the line item in the budget keyed to numbered or lettered explanations. Alternatively, if there's a number of unusual line items, an extensive explanation is required for the figures. You may want to structure the budget narrative as straight text.
Yeah, and definitely when you're going for like a federal grant or something like that, you definitely want to make sure that you're able to, after that budget, title it budget narrative and begin to talk about what item, why you buying it and what you need it for, and how does it help the organization. Even if you're buying office furniture, you have to be able to connect it to the organization. Well, we need this to be more effective and more efficient. People need to be able to sit down at a desk, in a chair, in order to be productive. So everything has to be justified when you're doing a budget narrative. At least most of the high ticket items have to be justified. Okay, not only that, the other argument is that, well, furniture increases our professionalism when people come into the office. So help the organization in terms of building its presence, its branding, and be seen as a professional organization. But at the end of the day, you just need to justify every dollar that comes in.
Budget food for the elderly.
Okay, this organization works for the elderly. They provide food for the elderly. Let's talk about their expense. More importantly, notice how they justify everything. This is what we call a budget justification. Okay, start reading from the numbers.
Salaries. Program coordinator, $35,000. Social worker, $30,000. Benefits, B, 20% of the salaries, $13,000. Office rent, $7,200. Office supplies, $1,000. Travel, $800.
Total. Now notice, I'm sorry, go ahead, read the total.
Oh, total expense, $87,000.
Notice how the person's base salary is 25 and 35. 35 and 30,000, but 20% also includes friends benefits. So this is not the bad salary, but also the friends benefits that comes along with it.
Okay.
Now let's give the justification.
A program coordinator is necessary to manage the program and ensure that services are delivered efficiently. A social worker is needed to work with the elderly participating in the program. Benefits include employer-paid taxes, dental insurance, health insurance, and long-term disability insurance. Rent for office is calculated as 30% of the total rent. Social worker will attend the annual conference of the National Association of Social Workers.
See how you put down travel for 800? And then they go back to explain what that 800 is spent for. That's what we call a budget justification.
Gotcha.
You put the number, you put travel there, but for what? But then you circle around and say circle workers will attend annual conferences.
Gotcha.
Okay? Gotcha. So you see the importance of the numbers and the explanation to the numbers.
Gotcha.
Okay, now let me move this. So we don't have to read all of this. We just need to know that make sure that your budget expenses are as accurately as current and as factually as possible, because the funders will double check you to make sure. They definitely will double check you to make sure. Make sure and read the last paragraph.
Remember to consider inflation and increases in costs, such as rent increases or annual salary increases. Certainly, funders don't expect perfection, and a certain degree of variation is acceptable. But if there is no way of knowing how much something is going to cost, it should not be included in your budget.
If you don't know what it's going to cost, don't put it in the budget. And not only that, for everything that you purchase as a nonprofit that's right, that's really thrifty and trying to save money, as part of what funders like to see is for you to show somewhere, if they ask, 3 different prices for that computer that you're buying, to show that you found the most cheapest of the computer when you compare to others. So that's important that you put down there in that budget justification that all of these numbers are based upon 3 quotes. And this, what you see here, present here, is the most cheapest available of all. People want to know you're taking care of their money. You're just not spending it to spend it. They want to know you're using that money just like you with your money. And if you're going to spend your money, if you're going to buy a computer, you're going to try to shop around.
Right.
Where can I get the same thing a nonprofit has to do as well? And that's important when you put it down in your budget justification. Okay.
Got it.
Now, there's going to be additional documents, and read about the additional documents.
When applying for funding, grant makers may require financial statements in addition to the expense budget for your project's costs. There's a variety of financial information which may be requested during the proposal process. In looking at the documentation foundations expect, it is important to read guidelines carefully. Some funders will ask for additional financial statements for the previous fiscal year, a list of supporters and other funding sources, an annual report, and a recent tax return, Form 990.
Yeah, most importantly, that they're going to definitely want to know your 990. But at the same time, I think what is important is that you're able to follow direction. Now, here's another thing that's very important. They talk about audit financial statements. Audit financial statements. You should, especially when money coming into your organization, every year you should have an auditor to come in as a third party to make sure all of the numbers are in line. That means in addition to your accountant, you also need to have a third party that's not familiar with you or your accountant to come in and do an audit, because funders want to know that there's a third set of eyes coming in to make sure the numbers are as they are. That's why it's so important that you keep an accurate record of all the expenses that's coming in, what we spend for, and what pot of money is coming from. All that's going to be very important. I always tell nonprofits to purchase this software called Quickbooks for nonprofits. That's a good software because every time money comes in, you're constantly typing it in. And when you buy something, you're constantly typing in what it was that you bought it. And then, if you bought it hard copy, you can make a copy of the receipt, and it goes directly into your files.
Okay.
So, and that way you can always be able, when an auditor come, because whenever an auditor come, they're always going to say randomly, we want to see your expenses for June, August, January. That means they're going to randomly look at 3 or 4 months. And that's why you want to have, the reason why they don't look at 12 months, first of all, it's not required unless they find something wrong when they look at those other 3 months. Now, if they find some inconsistency when they look at January compared to, let's say, October, compared to August, that's going to give them an alarm to say, this might have to be a full-blown audit because there is some inconsistency. But if you're doing what you're supposed to do on QuickBooks, that's going to be your brain because they're going to make sure that no mistakes pop up. And believe it or not, this is what what are these corporations? Fortune 500 corporations, they use QuickBooks.
Oh, gotcha.
Their accountant use QuickBooks. You know, people think it's coming out of people here. It's not. It's coming out of software. You purchase the software to make sure that you never find yourself in a situation that they will question your financials. Okay, so pretty much this right here talks about what happens when you receive that particular grant. And that pretty much means that they're going to ask you for reports. It may be quarterly reports. It might be by yearly reports, but they're going to always ask you to report back on what's going on. For example, your first report will be due in, let's say, 90 days. During that report, you're going to say, how many people have you served? How much money have you spent? What has been the impact so far? And is everything going according to what you submitted as to where you will be at this particular point? You submit that every 3 months or whenever they want it. So that's probably one of the things that groups have to probably learn more than everything else, is like how to do reports when those reports are due. Because a lot of organizations can run a program and a project, but they have not the slightest idea on how to do a report. Now, that's part of this course right here. We're going to be talking about how do you do a report. Mm-hmm. So when you return it back to the people that's giving the fund, that's going to be very important because a lot of people think you get the money and that's it. It's not. You got to do your quarterly report, or what we call progress reports.
Progress reports.
To show what's going on. People are not going to wait till the end of the year. They're going to say, no, we want to know every 3 months. So that means that we're only going to give you money for 3 months in advance. So you come back into us, you show what you did for this 3 months, and we'll kick you out another 3 months. Mm-hmm. Gone are the days that they give you everything at once. Because what happens if they give you everything at once?
You're gone.
You can mess that money up big time, right?
Yes, sir.
So now they say, no. If you submit those quarterly reports to show that you're doing what you say you're going to do.
We'll break you off, yeah.
There you go. Okay. Now, this is going to be important. This is generally accepted principles. Read those principles.
A budget is a plan for expenses, costs, and revenue where money will come from. Number 2, as plans change, so should a budget with respect to the agency's budget modification procedures. 3, revenue and expenses should balance. 4, rely upon past budget performance and finance figures. 5, when creating a budget, typically it's recommended to start with expenses, then revenue. 6, give the most attention to identifying and accounting for regular expenses, staff salaries and benefits, rent and utilities, insurance, travel, training. 7, cost sharing among programs should be fair and consistent. 8, prorate and appropriate expenses fairly to program or administration whenever possible to avoid appearing top-heavy.
Do you know what they mean by top-heavy?
Giving too much money to the administrative?
Yeah, exactly. That's what we call top-heavy. This is supposed to be about the people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not supposed to be about your salary. That's why you want to do several multi-grants. So you got multiple parts of multi-grants coming back to your salary. But at the end of the day, it's all about the program. It's all about the service. It's all about the impact. Let's continue. Okay, continue.
Budget for grants and proposals or applications for funding. Number 1, present the big picture and spare them the details. Unless asked for, lump expenses into commonly recognized categories and be prepared to provide specifics if asked. If necessary, provide a budget narrative to explain unusual expenses, revenue, or grant requests. Keep it short and to the point. Typically, number 3, typically 8 to 15% is allowable to administer or oversee a grant.
Mama, we talked about that. And here it is again, 18 to 15%. That's the standard. That's the industry rule. Go ahead.
Request funds for actual or planned expenses that will be used over the life of the grant. If possible, indicate how the grant you are applying for will be used towards expenses and include the requested grant as projected revenue. Make sure that all finance and budget portions of a grant application match agency budget, program, or project budget, annual report, etc. Always seek the funder's permission if you need or want to use grant monies differently than you originally proposed.
This is probably one of the most important items on this list. It's not that change can't be made, but it can't be made unless you contact the funders. Let me give you an example. So you have budget money for a particular item, such as 15 computers. And you budget, let's say, $15,000 for those computers. But someone just donated 15,000 computers to you. So you're asking the funders, can we move this number to another column? Can we increase salaries? Can we increase equipment or something like that? Can we move that to another budget item? You just can't do it arbitrarily.
Wow, gotcha.
So that makes sense?
You make sense.
That's what they mean by you always have to seek permission because things happen. You put in for 15,000 through the grace of God, somebody just donated the computers.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, you want to keep the money because you don't want to give it back. So you say, can we use it for another budget item? So as long as that budget item is in the grant, you can always say, we're going to increase this. You know, or we're going to increase, for example, since we got that, we're going to increase travel. Now we're going to put this money over in travel so we can travel more or whatever.
Gotcha.
You got to be able to justify doing it. You can't do it arbitrarily. Okay, read this.
Personnel-related expenses, salaries or wages for a program. Exclude those that are included in general operating administrative costs. Estimate merit increases. Estimated cost of living, COLA increases. Bonuses, increase in legal minimum wage, union management compensation agreements.
So just hold on for 1 second, because you have to actually predict what things are going to look like when you start to put in your budget, especially if you're doing a budget for multi-years. if you're doing a budget for multi-years, you always want to put in a 10 to 15% increase every year, because salaries changes, minimum wages change, and all kinds of things change. So that's why every year, if you're doing a a multi-year proposal. So year one will be this, plus 15%. Year three will be this plus 25%. So that's what they're saying.
Okay. Fringe benefits, FICA, 7.65%. State unemployment insurance, SUI, health and dental insurance, life insurance, retirement, e.g. 401k, child care allowances, other fringe benefits.
So as you see, you got to take care of your people. And take care of your people mean you put in there for child care. Because you know they're struggling. And you want to show that if you work for my organization, you're like family. We want to take care of them. We make sure you got good health benefits, dental, life insurance, retirement, all that. Okay, let's continue. But notice FICA is always 7.65%. Unless it changes. That's why every year you got to look at the feds and say, is that number the same? Change.
Okay.
But you use that number, so at least when you start to go towards FICA, and that FICA is FICA has to do with like the federal taxes and all that stuff like that. You want to make sure you got a 7.6% to make sure you cover FICA. Okay, let's continue. More money. Continue.
Personnel-related expenses continued. Uniforms and clothing, footwear, tools, safety equipment, etc. Hiring costs, employment ads, physical, drug screening, employment verification, license verification, background checks, etc. Temporary or part-time or seasonal employees, consultants and contractors, volunteer costs, other personnel-related expenses.
So there's more costs associated with personnel. That's why you want to be able to include everything and not submit a proposal later on, find out I should have submitted this. So as you can see, if you got uniforms, that's going to go into there. Volunteers, you want to give the volunteers something when they volunteer. It might be an award. But that has to be part of your cost of your organization, getting plaques and everything. Or it might be an appreciation dinner for your volunteers. But all that has to be part of the cost of your operation. So you need to put all that in there.
Gotcha.
Okay. Now, that's not all. Let's talk about the other costs associated.
Facility-related expenses, rent or mortgage payments, prorate as needed, and remember to plan for increases. Utilities, gas, electricity, waste, telecommunications, phone, fax, internet, pagers, cell phones, installation, equipment, monthly charges, long-distance costs, furnishings, contracted services, janitorial, snow removal, payroll, window washing, security, lawn maintenance, etc. Maintenance and cleaning supplies, equipment lease fees, maintenance contracts, depreciation and photocopier, maintenance, repair and inspections, elevator, boiler, fire alarms for equipment and major mechanical systems, plumbing, electric, heating, cooling.
So as you can see, it's a lot of costs associated when you start to get into the big numbers with a budget. Continue.
Other expenses, supplies, consumables, letterhead, envelopes, textbooks, paper, toner, etc. Office equipment, computers, software, dues, membership, subscriptions, travel, mileage, parking, marketing and advertising, ad design and production, displays, brochures and flyers, printing, writing, disseminating press releases and news stories, creating a public relations or recruitment campaign, postage, shipping, delivery, couriers, website, professional development, staff training, technical assistance, travel, meeting, conferences, special events.
So as you can see, it just go on and on and on. But if you notice, then you're going to budget for it.
Yes.
Okay, let's look at this individual grant that they won for and see how they was able to put money together from different organizations.
Wow. Grants. Rochester Area Community Foundation, $15,000. Public Trust Fund, $12,000. Wilmot Foundation, $8,000. Daisy Marriott Jones Foundation, $7,500. Citizens Bank Foundation, $3,500. Total, $46,000. Contracts, welfare to work, Monroe County, $24,000. NYS vested, $8,900. City School District, $5,100. Total, $38,000. Corporate contributors, Time Warner Cable, $9,000. MT Bank, $4,500. Paychecks, $3,700. Total, $17,200.
Okay, so let's talk about this middle section on how they bring in money. Apparently, they got services that they provide the welfare to work. It could be soft skill, employment training, or whatever the case might be. Now, a lot of some of your budget should be coming from contracts. For example, when you're dealing with the schools, it would be like Hillsborough County public schools and whatever they paying you to do something. Then another might be from it might be from the Department of Social Service. They might be paying you to teach people how to do videos or whatever the case might be. Contract, and we're going to talk about that. You can bring in a lot of money from fee, we call it fee for service. This is where the money comes from for you to provide your service free of charge through grants. But you're also bringing money for fee for service because you're always balancing the two. Then you bring the money in from corporations as well.
Gotcha.
So they got this group right here they have 3 sets of income that's coming in. They got money coming from different sectors related to grants. And that's this sector right here. And then contracts and then corporate contribution. What that means, these people have been able to partner, build relationship with the Rochester's Area Community Foundation, Public Trust Fund. And going for money is all about relationship. It's who you know at the end of the day. Okay. But that's not all. Look at this group.
Other anticipated revenue, individuals, fees for service, funders, events, sales, endowments, interest income, miscellaneous, in-kind contribution and services.
See that? In-kind contribution. Somebody's doing something free. But look how they've been able to put it quantified in terms of $28,000. See how good it looks in the budget?
It sure does.
Okay.
Total expenses, $78,092. Total expenses, $179,292. Revenue received, committed, anticipated to date, $126,692. Additional revenue required, $52,600.
Sorry, I didn't mean to hit that button that quick. This group right here is finessing it. They're going after different sources and bringing in different types of different amounts of money. Okay, so they brought in the total expenses that they looking at is 179. And they saying with all this money right here, they probably brought in 126,000. They can use this 126,000 now go after another grant for what?
52,000.
And then they're gonna be able to come up with the total budget. They show that we brought something to the table. We halfway there, or we 3/4 way there. Can you help us out? Now, if I'm a funder, I'm gonna jump on this.
Yeah.
Because you're bringing something. As opposed to a lot of organizations that hold their hand out. They're not bringing anything.
Brought nothing.
Yeah, you have to show your hustle. You know, that your money is going to be worth it because I already brought half of the money to the table, if not most of the money. Okay,
gotcha.
Continue. Now, this right here is just talking about the budget itself. When you start to put down revenue, expenses, and these different items can be contracts, United Way, membership. There's a whole list of different ways they plan to bring in money. What's interesting is this particular organization right here has 3 separate programs. So they put down the activity for contracts. Part of that contract might go to program 1 for a youth program. Another contract was that program 2 might go for a food program, and still program 3 might be another type of program. So they did this, they was able to show where the money is coming from and where it's going at. Now, if this group was only bringing in money from one program, it wouldn't need to be this complex. But whenever you bring in money in from different sources, you have to break it down in the budget.
Break it down.
For example, you might have money coming from the Children's Board, you got money coming from the schools, you got money coming from Bank of America, you might have money coming from somebody else. That's why it's careful that you break down your budget to show budget item where all the money is coming from.
Gotcha.
And then this goes on to break down the expenses. So you can see there's so many different types of expenses. But this is what a budget would look like. I'll send you this right here. Okay. As long with the recording. And that's it. But, you know, as we always do, 2 things that you learned today.
Oh, man. This budget, I took in that you're getting 25% of the for administrative fees from the overall budget.
Right.
And then 8 to 12% is a standard.
Yes.
For that.
Yes. That's called administrative costs or overhead.
For overhead.
Right. Because that's how you get paid.
Okay.
That's why it's so important that the CEO of the organization understand how they get paid. Okay. They get paid by the number of grants they write, and they get a % back to that salary. But at the end of the day, more importantly, they are providing those program services. So they're touching hundreds, if not thousands of people.
Yes, sir.
But everybody got to have a salary. I mean, we all got to get fed, right? You know, so that's where administrative costs come in. So you continue what you do with the salary.
Yes. And then that's what 100,000 to into 400,000 is like 0.25% or $1 for every dollar. Is 25 cents comes out of every dollar.
Yeah, that's how you plan your money. You say, well, look, this is what my salary. I want my salary to be 120,000 a year. That's where you start from. Okay, if that's the case, I need to look at what % of every program dollar goes towards that 120,000. 20,000 might come from this program. 30,000 might come from this program. And then another amount might come from that program. But ultimately, what you want to do is to move away from grants and focus on creating a business that create fee for services dollars.
Fee for service dollars.
It might be doing commercials for churches or small businesses. That's where your money come in.
Yes.
So you say we're getting grants, but we also are focused on fee for services. So even if the grant stops, we're not going to be that heavy impacted. Most organizations are heavy impacted because they only depend on grants instead of creating the fee for services.
Gotcha.
In order to bring in the money.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, hold on 1 second.